No, I don't think we've got PA in the room, but it's a small enough room that I think you won't need. They're all very good at projecting our panelists, and so we will be going out on the live stream though, so hence the microphone. So you're all going live around the world, everybody. So be on your best behaviour. Good afternoon. On behalf of the Yes AFL team, Yes Stadium Association, welcome to this forum, which is aimed at dispelling some of the myths and ignorance the association believes exists around the economic and social benefits of the multi-purpose stadium proposed for Macquarie Point. My name's Peter G, and along with Alison Rogers, will be joint MC moderator for today's forum. And before Alison introduces herself and makes some official acknowledgements, I'd just like to make full disclosure. While it's not the reason I'm here today, I am a board member of Cricket Tasmania, and I think it's probably well known that the organisation is on the record as supporting the stadium and the Tasmanian AFL team. CEO Dom Baker and our board chairman Tim Scott are very sorry they can't be here today, but on their behalf I can confidently say that CT believes cricket is vital to the ultimate success of the stadium and is working hard with its developers to make sure the facility caters for both the playing and watching of cricket at the absolute highest, if not world-leading level. So I've got that out of the way, and I'll introduce Alison Rogers to you. Alison.
Thank you everyone for coming along today. This was a very impromptu get together, so I apologise for the short notice and hence some people not being able to be here. But I was very fortunate to have Christine Finnegan as a guest speaker at Women's Network Australia, another organisation that I'm a part of, and I thought, while I've got Christine in the room, I'm going to keep her and I'm going to give Kath and Anne a call and say, hey, can we put together a panel? And then James very graciously agreed to also participate. So I just want to welcome Anne Beach from the Macquarie Point Corporation, James Avery from Stadiums Tasmania, Kath McCann from Tasmania Football Club, and Christine Finnegan from Tasmania JackJumpers. Thank you so much for all dedicating some time this afternoon to be with us and to share your points of view and your experiences with this project so far. I just want to thank the Honourable Madeleine Ogilvie, Minister for the Arts, Champion of Women's Football, for being here today. And we do have, I believe, Honourable Rosemary Armitage, MLC, on our live stream. So Rosemary, if you're watching, thank you for joining us. We did have a number of apologies from MPs who were unable to be here. The Honourable Nick Duigan, the Honourable Josh Willey, the Honourable Bridget Archer, the Honourable Jane Howlett, Rob Fairs MP, Janie Finlay MP, Dean Winter MP, Brian Mitchell MP, Anita Dow MP, the Honourable Meg Webb MLC, the Honourable Ruth Forrest MLC, and the Honourable Casey Hiscutt MLC. We also did, as Peter mentioned, we had apologies from Dominic Baker and Tim Scott from Cricket Tasmania, as well as Ben Targett, and also Renee Brown from the My State Arena, who's sadly interstate at the moment. And we do have the Honourable David O'Byrne, well, not quite honourable at the moment, but we'll call him honourable. He's honourable to us. Independent MP, representative for the Franklin electorate. Thank you very much for joining us. We did have Peter George saying he was going to join us, but I can't quite see him in the room just yet. And I do think that the Honourable Eric Abetz is on his way. He was on Bruny Island. I'm not liking the chances for those ferries.
The ferry's been cancelled, I think, yeah.
But anyway, if the ferries are able to cope, then Eric Abetz may join us a little bit later. We do have some senior advisors for politicians in the room, so thank you very much for coming along to represent. And Edwina Morris from Tourism Tas, thank you for coming along. Damien Gill, where are you, Damien? I don't think I've spotted Damien today, so not here yet. And thank you very much for all of the other guests for coming along today. the Yes AFL team, Yes Stadium Association, we started when Mark Brown started his Facebook group, and we saw that it was getting a lot of traction. But we thought that we could offer some help in that space. And so we were there to support Mark in the early days, organise stickers and advertising, and his foot soldier is in the room and is now our president of our association. And so we've been busily spreading the word in terms of the benefits that we see for this multi-purpose precinct. There is no doubt that we know the benefits of an AFL team in your own state, but we're also wanting to make sure that people understand that there is way more to this project than just the sporting part of it. There is a lot of other industries that would be represented in this precinct, and the stadium offers some amazing pathways and an incredible opportunity for Tasmania if we can take it with both hands and bring it into realisation. So with that, I'm going to hand back over to Peter, and we're going to start with the panel. We've got some questions planned, which is based on research in terms of what are some of the main things that people keep bringing up about the stadium and why they're not sure whether it's the right thing for Tasmania. And then we will be able to throw out to the group and see if there's any questions in the room that you would like to put to the panel. It is being filmed, so just be aware of that. We have Channel 7 and I think Sky News and Win TV here, so thank you for that. And of course we do have our own recording as well, which is done by Content Visuals. So thank you very much to Adam and the team for being here to organise this.
Thanks, Alison. I'll let you take the microphone so that the live stream gets to hear everything that goes on here.
Can everyone hear? Is it on?
It's on. You don't have to touch anything. This is a dream for technophobes such as myself. But the multi-purpose aspect of the stadium, I think it would be fair to say that it's not been well articulated and communicated to the Tasmanian community. Hence the all this for just 7 games of football refrain, which we are still hearing. James Avery, who's the inaugural CEO of Stadiums Tasmania, in case you don't know what that's about, it's a state government-owned independent statutory body established, I guess, 2 years ago now, James, to oversee the running of Tasmania's stadia infrastructure, of which Mac Point, without the doubt, will be the jewel in the crown. So that portfolio contains predominantly sporting precincts such as Ninja across the river and UTAS in Launceston, but I think it's the non-sporting aspects of the proposed development at Mac Point that we'd really like to emphasise today and perhaps get the message out there to people that haven't heard it or have decided they don't want to hear about it. Anne Beach, who's the CEO of Mac Point Development Corporation, I'm so glad she's brought her visuals with you here today, because we had a presentation at Cricket Tas about 1.5 years ago, and I came away so excited about this, even though cricket did have some questions, and as I say, there's been work going on in the meantime to make sure the game can be played at Mac Point, because I do think the ultimate success of this venture is the 365-day use of the ground, and cricket's going to play a big part in that. So I'd perhaps like to start off with you, Anne, if I could. What type of events will we experience at the multi-purpose stadium, apart from football?
We can do everything, Peter. So at the stadium, part of the design has been what are we trying to accommodate on site? And while there is obviously the main playing field in the middle, there's a huge spectrum of things that we're looking to accommodate, and that's all part of the design. So the image I've got here, and I can flick through a few, is of the goods shed. So the goods shed's currently located on site, and that will be relocated to the north and integrated as part of the concourse, and it becomes a venue that Stadium Tasmania can operate every day of the week and also activate as part of events and game days. We have a 1,500-person seated dining function room that can be divided into 3 different spaces with operable walls. So it allows us to have, with bar facilities for each of those, offerings every day of the week. There'll be a sports bar, there'll be a restaurant that are dedicated spaces, and you mix those together, allows us to unlock access to events that the state just cannot attract now. So having a function room of that scale and the Good Shed, as well as our corporate suites, which provide meeting spaces, an additional suite we provide in the south that's dedicated for cricket and an activated smaller function space, we can unlock activities that allow us to have events that require exhibition space alongside meeting spaces, and it's a whole scale that we can't currently have. James will be able to talk to the spectrum of events in the corporate space, but they're actually the main base of sustaining the stadium. We will have some major events that will be in there, and they include sporting events, and they include concerts, and we're making sure we can design safely and have capacity for those. But it will also be the activation of all the spaces around that are critical for the success of the stadium.
Okay, James, take over.
Thanks, Peter. Can I just say thanks to everyone for being here today, just off the bat. I just think it's really important that this project has some informed discussion, and I think it's perfectly okay for people to have different views about a project like this. In fact, it's healthy to have different points of views. This is a major project. It's not uncommon for projects like this to be contentious, around the country and around the world. So I just want to say it's important that different points of view have voices, but I will say your voice has been incredibly important to date, and thank you for standing up and being so strong about this project. It really is important. In terms of the multi-purpose nature of the venue, so we all know that the Devils are the catalyst for this venue. Having worked in the AFL system myself, both at the AFL and at clubs, I can tell you that a club's finances can live and die by the economics of their stadium agreement. It's just a fact. It's not a convenient narrative that's been put together by the Devils or anyone else. You speak to anyone within the AFL industry, it is critical for a club's survival to have a strong economic model around their stadium. We also know that if this stadium isn't built, the Devils aren't in the AFL and AFLW competition. So we just know that. So setting that aside, and with respect to the Devils, it's not all about them. It goes far beyond the Devils. It goes far beyond sport, in fact. So yes, we will have Devils games there, which will be historic, but we'll also have other sporting events there, which will be historic. Cricket we're working with, as Peter's mentioned. Other sports will be represented in the venue. We'll be able to get events, whether it be NRL events, whether it be soccer events, whether it be international sporting events that we don't currently get here, certainly not on a consistent basis over a long period of time. But far more than the sporting events, we'll be getting a whole range of events that have nothing to do with sport. So if you don't like sport, you can come to this venue and you're going to be able to enjoy things that Tasmanians don't get to enjoy at the moment. So if you're thinking about cultural events, arts events, community events, our modelling that we have done, so we have built an operating model for the venue, which is part of our responsibility as the future owner-operator of the stadium. That operating model has taken an enormous amount of time. It's had consultation with a whole range of stakeholders, including members of the Devils, members of the Hurricanes, to understand what the local market is telling us, how much they want to come to events, how much they're willing to pay for events. So we've got a whole range of assumptions that have built this model, and this model tells us that there will be 334 events each calendar year running out of the stadium. Now, they're clearly not all going to be sporting events. There will be concerts in there. We will be able to get large-scale concerts. We'll be able to get smaller-scale concerts. We know this because we talk to the major concert promoters around the country and overseas who want to put content into this venue, who want to bring concerts here. I'm not saying we're going to have Taylor Swift, but there is a whole band of events that sit below the Taylor Swifts of the world that we don't get here. Currently, we're not in a position to even get to the table with these concert promoters and have a conversation. This venue enables us to do that. Having up to 40,000 people in the venue in concert mode is something we've never had here, and we won't have it again unless we have a venue like this. But far beyond concerts and live entertainment, it's about business events and conferencing. So at the moment, Business Events Tasmania tell us that we are missing out on tens of millions of dollars in conferencing events because we simply don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the facilities. This has been designed specifically to be able to cater for events, conferences where you have 1,100 to 1,500 people. The Tasmanian market doesn't meet that demand at the moment. So again, we don't get to sit at the table and have a conversation about attracting those events. Outside of those events, there are much smaller events, private events, private dinners, weddings, parties, all sorts of things that occur at every venue around Australia of this scale. So That's how you get to
Which
300.
the public don't see, really.
They don't.
do
They don't see it. Most of those run between a Monday to Thursday, so it's not like the venue sits there dormant outside of major events on the weekend year round. It is activated, if not 7 days a week, almost 7 days a week, every week of the year. So you go to Adelaide Oval, you see these events taking place. You go to the MCG, you go to all the venues of this scale around the country. There are private events on various scales happening right throughout the week, every week of the year. So hopefully that I'm trying to paint a picture here based in fact, based in reality, that the venue is far more than a football stadium.
So many aspects of what you've said there we could jump into, but Christine, I've given you a bit of a rest because you spoke at the women's network function prior to this. What's a CEO of a basketball team doing here when we're talking about a big stadium? Anne's got the laptop, which perhaps can show that. But James touched on the economics of actually maximising as a team in a national competition what your venue can do for you. You've been the CEO since the start of the JackJumpers. You've filled the deck, My State Arena, every single time you've played there. How much money do you reckon you've lost because you've had to put the house full sign up every day?
Oh, I could tell you exactly because I work for Larry Kesselman. But,
Does he watch his pounds and pence, does he?
No. I asked the same question before I answer that, but I would like to say I worked for the St Kilda Football Club for 6 years, and everything that James just said rings true. Our stadium deal was horrible. We desperately wanted one game a year at the MCG so we could actually make money on our stadium. And so if you as a club are using stadiums that don't support your business, then your club's P&L is in all sorts of trouble right from the start. So it makes perfect sense that the Devils will be an anchor tenant and that this stadium is there to service the Devils, and that is hugely important. It's a very important point. In terms of our model and our stadium, yes, look, we went for a safe option, and Peter Gutman will tell you we had 3 options on the table, and at the time we were in COVID and we went for the less than 5,000 seat stadium, and we found ourselves in a position where we've got 4,000 people on a waiting list. That is not my biggest problem at the moment, though it's a very big problem. My other big problem is I'm having trouble accessing my own arena at the moment because we did a $90 million redevelopment of My State Bank Arena. We now have a world-class arena in Tasmania, and guess what? People want to use it. They want to come and they want to do things. And so we've got concerts lining up. We've got the Boomers coming soon. We've got all this product coming into Tasmania that wouldn't have otherwise come if we didn't invest in that arena. So as the anchor tenant, it's the key reason we upgraded the arena. I have to work nearly 12 months, if not. Renee actually rang me the other day and said any danger we could lock in the WNBL, and I was like, well, this season hasn't started, so I'm not sure I'm going to lock in next season. But that's the problem that she's got, and she was saying April, May, June, July are horrendous. They're booked out. So my horrendous is not her horrendous. And it's not Tasmania's horrendous because it means that there's product coming in, there's conferences, there's events, and there's concerts coming in. But they're at a level that is about mid-range because they can't squeeze more than 10,000 in. This stadium will be the next available option. And we joke about Taylor Swift, but why not? You know, we always say why here, but why not?
Just before you hand, because I'd like to get on to Kath's view about this. What do you think when you see that render that Anne has put up for basketball at the Mac Point?
Well, I think it'll serve as a waiting list, which is great. So we've got 4,000 of them. But, look, amazing. I mean, we've seen that happen at Marvel Stadium in the past, and it is amazing. And, you know, the NBL, why wouldn't we get the NBL versus the NBA like it's just happened in Melbourne? We can't take those games on at the moment, even though we're a club that they would look at doing it with because we don't have the infrastructure to support it. So we've just seen the NBA come to Australia for the first time. So this will mean, and, not promising, but this will mean we're in the competition to get an NBA team in Tasmania, not just the JackJumpers, which is great. So it's hugely exciting.
What sort of numbers are we looking at with that quarter of the stadium sort of blocked off with a backdrop curtain of some degree? Anne, what sort of numbers for basketball?
We are looking around
15,000.
Which is what the Melbourne United get to play in front of every week, and
Right.
we get to play in front of 4.5. So, there's a great comparison for that, and that just endorses what I just said.
Kath, McCann, the economics of playing in the AFL at Ninja Stadium and UTAS, because people say, why don't we just play at the stadiums we've got? Could the Tasmanian Devils survive playing at the two stadiums that we have for now on, forever? Maybe interim or games up in the north during the actual season, but what would it mean to the running of your club if we didn't go ahead with Mac Point?
Thanks, Peter. I just want to echo James's comments just to thank everyone for coming. And I particularly want to acknowledge the three young people sitting on the table up the back. And coming into a room sometimes with a lot of adults, it's tricky. And you guys have turned up. So I just want to say thank you. It's really great to have you here. And sorry to single you out. Now everyone knows you're here. But thanks for being here.
Are they part of your academy, the academy which you...
Well, I can see, look, I've seen these youngsters in the news. Well, many of us probably have in the newspapers. I never like to talk about names of youngsters because I don't want to put pressure on them as they traverse through their trajectory. But I'm hoping names get called out in the coming years that belong to communities all across this state. And let's hope it's some of the ones in this room and all across the state. Thank you for the question. We've talked a lot about stadium economics. And for many here in Tasmania, I remind myself regularly that the AFL is a new industry. We don't know a lot about it as a community. And so we kind of got to educate ourselves, right? That's important. And that's not something for us to get frustrated about. That's a journey for us as a community to go on together. The reality is the AFL is a very big business. It's a significant business, and there is a direct correlation around the financial sustainability of a club and on-field performance. Now, all these people around me will say it doesn't guarantee on-field performance, but if you're looking inverse, financial sustainability in a negative state will almost guarantee a negative performance. And if you have the opportunity to speak like people like Brendan Gale and Finny, bless her, she was at St Kilda, she can probably talk categorically around the material impact that has on your program and your ability to create an impact. And the number one contributor to the financial sustainability is indeed your venue hire agreement. So the agreement that you have in place with Stadium. Now, for us, that'll probably be somewhere between, it'll probably be around 40% of our total turnover. So it is absolutely critical. And in fact, in our submission to the TPC, which is a written submission, anyone can access that. You can actually see the financial differential for us playing at other venues as opposed to the 23,000 seated and 1,500 standing at Macquarie Point. The financial differential is material. We're talking between $5 and $6 million, which when you look at the turnover of our business, which will be circa $50 million, you can start recognising, how important that's going to be. But it's actually much more than that. When we talk about, and it's probably a myth for me to dispel while I've got it. So if we look at Ninja, we talk around 15,000 people. And if we talk about York Park, 17 and a half, all right, when it's finished. So 15, 17 and a half, 24 and a half. It doesn't sound like a lot, but the materiality of that financially is actually very significant. But put the stadium economics to the side for the moment. There's a few other things that I think are worth thinking about. If we all agree fundamentally that bringing people together for live sport is good for community, do we all agree that? If we agree that, that's a philosophical premise. Now, if we agree that, what we need to understand as consumers, all of us in this room, is that it's really hard to get people away from their lounge rooms these days. Yeah, we've got devices, we've got streaming services, we've got access to content in many different ways. So we need to have quality facilities. It's absolutely essential. So that's really important. Overlay that with the fact that we want our AFL club not only to be successful, but to be able to create social good, broader impact in this state. We've currently got 215,000 members. Yep, some might say we need to build a bigger boat. Yeah? Because we've got a supply and demand issue that we're facing into. We want as many Tasmanians as possible to get access to be able to come along and watch. I know that's Finny's something you battle with day to day, and particularly those youngsters across this state that really need to be at these games for aspiration, for inspiration and for confidence. So the size of the venue becomes particularly important. But the other important things, particularly around Ninja and York Park, that I think we've just got to recognise is the reality is we're going to construct it's a big investment we're making. I think everyone would agree. It's significant. And we're going to have to sweat that thing really hard because we want it to not only pay itself back, but we want the ripple and the effects of it just to absolutely light up not just this town, but this state. One of the key things about the venue being in the city is, in fact, that, with all respect to my state, we go to a JackJumpers game, we see those guys and the girls coming, we see them win, we're that hyped up. What do we want to do? We want to go to the pub together, or we want to go out for a feed, or we want to party on, right? Can we do that in Glenorchy on a Wednesday night because your arena's full? It's a struggle, all right? So in order to drive the economic value, being in the city is absolutely essential, because that is what will light up our pubs, our clubs, our hotels, the venues all across the state. So I think that's really important for us to remember. The current venues we will be playing at. Yep. So importantly, if you look at, and you might say, oh, Kath, Brendan, why can't you continue to play York Park and Ninja, which we will be playing actually for our first year in the league. We can sustain York Park because we've got Macquarie Point coming, if that makes sense. So the capacity of York Park and the financial differential, but we can't compound those two things together sustainably ongoing, if that makes sense. So from our perspective, economically it's essential, but it's so much bigger than that. And you know, it sort of pains me a little bit. I'm looking to David O'Byrne here, but I'm going to quote Eddie Maguire. He's going to give me a round of applause just for saying that. Eddie was down here recently, and many people would have views about Eddie Maguire. I'm sure we all do. But one of the things he said, and it's what I'll finish on, he said, you're going to be playing in the big league, Tasmania. You've got a really, really special place. You're going to be broadcast to the world. You don't want to have a pimple on your nose. And I did sit back, and he said, you've got to look good. You've got to put your best foot forward. And that's not just about the game on the turf. That's about investment. It's about migration. It's about how we feel about ourselves. And I'll just wrap up with that. And it stuck me. You don't want to have a pimple on your nose. You want to look good. Let's do it. Let's put our best foot forward in the best possible venue, in the best place in the world.
Just hold the microphone for a second. We're busting myths today, and the pimples thing, the anti-brigade could say that this is a pimple on the nose of Hobart, and they have said that. So I just thought I'd put that in there. But one of the big things we still hear is we can have the Devils without a new stadium. I think the AFL CEO, Andrew Dillon's been pretty forthright on that. We probably can knock this one off pretty quickly. Why no stadium, no team?
Well, I understand, and I reflect, and I've said this to Andrew Dillon in person. I understand why Tasmanians, no one barracks for the AFL. That's just full stop, even if you're at GWS or St Kilda or Collingwood. So that's a direct barrier we all have about the AFL. Secondly to that, they've kind of starved us of our dream for a very long time. So there's an even compounded aversion to the AFL here in Tasmania, and us Tasmanians have got long memories. So I do kind of think that, you know, we've probably got extra barriers up towards the AFL than the average Joe, maybe even in Victoria. But what I would say categorically is that what the AFL have stipulated, which actually came through in the recommendations from the Tasmanian Task Force, was to set us up for success. And I know that feels hard to swallow, but the reality is they know what longitudinal success in this industry can look like, and financial sustainability is absolutely key. Brendan often talks about the 18 club presidents and the discussion around the role that they play. And in fact, those presidents, they're amazing, they're volunteers, but they don't have a lot of things that they actually can vote on and can control. But one of them is new teams coming in. And they've only got two things, that and the composition of the commission. Now, when they're sitting around a table, there's 18 of them. They're all competitors, right? It's what we do. We play to win, yeah? And sitting in front of them is a proposition for a 19th team to come in. They know what the financials look like in terms of what the success of this club needs. They know that this is a contemporary entertainment product. It needs to look good for a consumer, but it needs to be able to make money. And if they see that this stadium is not something that is going to proceed, then they're just looking at a cost, an impost on the league, Australia's national game. So it's important for us to recognise the AFL not doing this to us because they think it's a good, fun game to make Tasmania build a stadium. They're actually doing this to set us up for success, as are the other 18 clubs. Because what will happen is if we are not financially sustainable and we have to rely on the AFL, a few things happen. One is we don't get control of our own decision making. And if we're going to enter this league, I don't think that's what any of us want. And secondly, we'll effectively become we'll be weak in terms of our ability to act and behave on our own part. So it feels nasty, and I've heard the words. I've talked to many people. We've done our own consumer research, and I understand it. But the reality is actually about setting us up for success.
And could we go back to the physical nature of what's proposed for Macquarie Point? Another one of the catch cries is that it doesn't need a roof. Does it?
It absolutely needs a roof. So the roof actually gives us a whole new offering that other stadia don't have. And you may have seen a lot of commentary in the media that a lot of different parties are watching internationally as well to see how we can deliver this as a model that they can adapt in other places. The roof.
So if we don't build it, someone will steal our design, will they?
Of course they will. But it actually offers us a lot more. So trying to walk around in the last couple of days, wind-driven rain, not real fun. So you can
Football's a winter game.
Indeed. So you look at all stadia have roofs. This idea of no roof, it's not a thing. All stadia have roofs. And a lot of stadia will have a roof out into covering sort of where patrons sit. It doesn't help you when the wind's coming in sideways. And the drip zone often doesn't go 100%. So there's always going to be a few people at the front. They're getting a little bit damp even on a good day. So there's one is the experience. So we're trying to deliver a fan-first experience here, and the roof is one of those elements. It also gives certainty to events. So we can offer certainty regardless of weather, we'll be able to proceed. And in games like cricket, where if they don't get out, they last potentially for 5 days, we could potentially offer that full 5 days. Even further, we might be able to extend the season. So we might be able to attract tests and other things earlier because we can have that certainty of weather. So weather's one thing. There's also a lot of benefits that come with having a roof around flexibility. We can hang just over 100 tonne from our roof. So you can think when there's a concert on, I don't know if people get excited about Pink and have flying around on apparatus, we can do all of that from our roof. I've had some pictures up on the screen showing the sectioning of the stadium. That's all possible because we can hang all of that from that space.
So it's not as adaptable
absolutely.
if we don't have that roof.
The roof also hides in it our sports lights. So when you look at...
I hope the roof's going to stay on here.
If you look at other stadia, they often have large light towers. That's going to be sideways rain in a minute out there. Large light towers that cast light. Our sports lights are embedded in our roof through two really discrete rings, and they're at 36 metres high, which is really important because at Marvel there have been issues in a roof venue around players having lights in their eyes because of their size and location of the lights. So we can embed all those things. It also gives us flexibility when James and his team are putting on events. There was different light and interactions both on the inside and the outside of the annulus, the solid bit of the roof that runs around the outside. So we can use the venue without bringing in any additional kit or any additional expense for someone putting on an event to have full flexibility and really being able to light it up. There's some of the benefits. We've obviously done a huge amount of modelling around climate and experience in there for our player and people sitting in the stands. We know you get protection from wind, which we're experiencing pretty significantly this week. Also, obviously, humidity and similar we've tested as well. So it adds a whole new experience as part of the fan first, but certainty for events as well.
We can't grow grass under the roof. Marvel, you mentioned, they had great difficulty, especially early on. How is that aspect of this development being approached?
I imagine most people have been into a greenhouse type environment before and seen that plants often thrive and survive. You can absolutely grow turf in this space. We've designed this facility with natural turf in mind. So while it is roofed, there are natural ventilation. So at the back of the seating bowl at the top, there are purposeful gaps in there, which is really important for the health of the turf. So we need to keep it dry. And we need to give it good UV. The selection of the dome roof has been one of those key things when one of our key criteria is supporting a natural turf because that gives us so much flexibility in the types of experiences we can offer and sporting codes having that natural turf environment. It will be, it's carefully built, it has actually minimal drainage because with a roof we don't have to worry about rain, we can control all of the irrigation. So with the natural ventilation and with the humidity modelling, we can get excellent quality turf under our roof. Also, importantly, the covering that we have on the roof allows UV through, and that's critical for turf growth. You will see grow lights at our stadium, as you will in every single stadium that has a natural turf, because the part of the challenge is, and MCG is a good example, as such a really large structure, it does cast a shadow for parts of the day. So on the western side, you do need a little bit of grow lights to assist, but we'll be relying mainly on natural light for the growth of our turf.
James, maybe you can answer this one, or anyone can jump in. As the Tasmanian Planning Commission recommended not to progress, the project should be stopped. What was your impressions when the Commission brought out their findings? Have you been biting your lip not to answer them back?
No, I don't. Again, as I sort of touched on before, I think it's okay for there to be different views and for people to be putting a different case across. And so I have the utmost respect for the TPC. I mean, the amount of time and effort that they put into their deliberations, and we're all involved in the public hearing processes, which were exhaustive. And you know, I can say as having presented for a number of hours at the hearings, I think we got a fair go. I think they listened to what we said. Now, did they include everything that we put on the table in the final report? Not necessarily, but that's okay. Ultimately, it'll be members of Parliament that make the decision on this project, and no doubt that they will have a look at the TPC's report, and they will also speak with organisations like ourselves and everyone that you're seeing up the front here today, and others, and as they should. So I think it's a very important reference point. It's not the be all and end all, obviously. I don't think we can expect them to put their arms around a project this big and be right at every turn. What I do know is that there is more to it than is in that report, because we're living and breathing this every day. We're working on this every day and have been for a number of years, and will continue to do that for a number of years. So it is also a fairly nuanced project. You know, we're used to building certain types of projects here in Tassie, and we're not used to building projects like this, though. This is unique. It has a number of elements that are different to what we've dealt with in the past. So I think they should be commended for the amount of time and effort that they have put into the report and the work. It's not easy. It is not easy. As I said before, it's not unusual for these types of projects to be contentious. Having lived in other parts of the world where stadiums are being built and have seen how heated the public debate can get, and how upset some people can be, and how adamant others are that it is the right thing to do, this is not unusual. It is actually par for the course. So we shouldn't see it as something that is completely unique to Tasmania, that we're looking to build a stadium and people are getting upset by it. It's normal. It's actually normal. And in fact, having been in Sydney when they were going through redevelopments of their stadiums and seeing how nasty that got at times, I do recognise that some of the debate here is very civilised, and people are prepared to listen to the other side, and I think that's how it should be. So ultimately, I think, you know, members of the Parliament will look at the TPC's report and they'll interpret it how they want to. But I think as long as they're getting information from a variation of sources and a variety of organisations, then I think they'll make an informed decision.
You've been quite diplomatic about the TPC. One thing I sort of thought in looking at the makeup of it is that they're very well credentialed, but I didn't really get a sense that they actually were sporting people or knew or even had any idea of what happens every weekend at Hobart Airport, people flying off to see AFL matches or going to concerts, the money that flows out of the state because we can't make the same offering down here. Would you be willing to say that is a true reflection?
I think the government was out saying that the economic value has been underestimated and undervalued. I would agree with that, absolutely. And I think there's some information that's about to come out that will support that statement from the government. So, yes, I don't agree with everything that's in the report. Don't get me wrong. All I'm trying to say is that I think if you use that as the sole reference point, then you're making a mistake. And as I mentioned before, this is a unique, complex, nuanced project. Now, you mentioned whether the TPC is set up to deal with a project of this type. Well, I think it's a question that people can ask themselves. But what I do know is it hasn't been done before, and you can't apply previous rationale or previous projects in a cookie cutter fashion to this particular project. It is a different beast. And I think the more people you can speak to about it, the better informed you can be about it, the better decision people will make themselves.
You mentioned politicians. We have a number in the room. Maybe Alison, you could take the microphone over to David O'Byrne. I think we were hoping to have both independents from Franklin here today, one who's pro, one who perhaps isn't. But David, what's your reading of, the TPC report, for example, from your fellow politicians? You're in the lower house, and it would seem that the order will go through there, but the upper house is where it's going to be decided. How do you read what your fellow members in Parliament House are thinking?
Well, I think the TPC report, I concur with James. Whilst elements of it sort of you scratch your head and go, I'm pretty sure they may have missed the point in that element. It's the most amount of information that's publicly available for people to make a decision on. And I think the process in of itself, and whilst I didn't really enjoy the election and having to go through it, no one in the room probably enjoyed the election. I think the fact that the POS process was allowed to continue has inadvertently, or silver lining, allowed more information in the public domain. So I think that's a very, very good thing. And I think it's assisted members of Parliament to fully understand the project. The great thing about the report, regardless of its final recommendation, it says it can be built, because there are a whole lot of statements out there saying, oh, you can't build it there because of X, Y and Z, and there's a whole range of challenges which means that the project will fail. I think the fact that the TPC said you can mitigate virtually all of the challenges, which are engineering, logistics, planning, traffic, people movement, all those things can be managed. And then they formed what I thought was a subjective view on the look of it, the design of it, and the location. So, and the economics. I must admit, it was a bit bizarre, sort of, when they inferred that the cost was 1.8 billion, and they inferred a debt on that. I mean, the state government budget has $1 billion of infrastructure spent every year. And so this is a capital cost that can be managed over the forward estimates. And so there's not necessarily a debt number attached to that $1.1 billion tag. So I think in of itself, my read of the House, the lower house is pretty clear. People have formed their views in the lower house. There's independents and the Greens who are against it. The major parties, myself, are for it. And the numbers will be in the upper house. And in talking to upper house members, there's more questions about the money. There's more questions about some of the more bigger aspects that will have an impact on other government spending, which are sort of exercising their mind. But I think the TPC report of itself has enabled more upper house members to make an informed decision. And I know all of them are getting information beyond the TPC report, as James has said. So I'm confident and I'm hopeful that if people look to the future, that we can get it through.
While you've got the microphone, can you just firm up the timeline of what's happening now? The report, the order, if it gets vice-regal assent, will be go to the lower house. I've seen the 4th of November, which is Melbourne Cup Day. That may not be a coincidence, I'm not sure. But
it's a disgrace you're sitting on Cup Day too. So I think that, so it'll be introduced if we get the Governor's assent, and I'm sure we will. It'll be introduced into the House on the 4th. It'll lay on the table for a couple of weeks because that's budget week and we have to deal with the budget. And I think it's the 13th and 14th of November, I think, are the 2 days that have been slated for a debate. In the lower house, debates are timed, so you have a time limit. And so that should take a day or two to get through the lower house. If everyone speaks and everyone takes their full time, then it will move to the upper house and they'll deal with that in the first week of December. There are no speaking limits in the upper house in terms of time, and so it'll be a lengthy debate. And I acknowledge Michael Gaffney is in the room as well, the upper house member. I saw him, and great to see you here too, Mike, football lover. And he's got a big decision to make coming up, and so the upper house will go through their process, and we have to be respectful of that. There's a long tradition of the role of the upper house in Tasmania and how they do their business. It's not for our house to tell them how to manage it. They need to manage it and debate it, but we'll know by the end of that first week of December, in my view.
Thanks, David. Here's another one, perhaps, Anne, you could start it off. The stadium will take over the whole Macquarie Point site and deface the Hobart skyline. I know it's, at the moment, just bitumen and chain link fences and old sheds and sewage treatment plants, but it's the apple of the eye for so many people, and they just don't want this blighting what is such a wonderful vista at the moment.
It is a beautiful patch of dirt, but we can probably do better. So the opportunity to develop our site is really an opportunity to add to Salamanca bookend at one end and Macquarie Point at the other of our Hobart waterfront. The stadium will be around 45% of our site. So the idea that it takes up our whole site is just wrong. We did a precinct plan for the site first before starting the design work on the stadium. We did a footprint kind of test to make sure we allowed enough space, but it is only one of the developments, but it is a critical development. It's a foundation development, and it will be what brings people to the site every day for those 334 event days that James spoke about, and the activation of all of the different elements of the stadium that bring people there every day. But it is only one of our developments. We have our Aboriginal Culture Informed Zone at the front of the site to the west, and then 17,000 metres squared of commercial development space to the east, so wrapping around. Modern stadia are not built as islands on their own. As Kath mentioned before, you come out of a JackJumpers game pumped, and then you have to get in your car and drive home because there's nothing around the stadium to do. Activated as part of a mixed-use precinct will help that activation every day. With the commercial mixed-use precinct there, we will also see people going to work there every day, going to get into those activated spaces in public spaces, and also to the north we'll also have a residential development where we can fit 100 apartments. It will be a renewal of this part of the city, and the stadium is just one part of that.
Peter, can I just add to that? I'm sort of perplexed by that narrative a little bit because it's the proposition you put forward. On the one hand, people are saying it's going to take over the whole site and deface the waterfront. On the other hand, we hear that the site's too constrained and too small for a precinct in a stadium. I mean, I'm not sure which one it is, but what I do know is that in dealing with a range of other stadia around this country and overseas, the idea of this precinct fits perfectly for what you need to do around a stadium. Anne's right, you can't just build a stadium by itself. You have to develop a precinct around it. And Kath touched on it before. And the local sort of providers that we speak to, local producers, so we want to make this venue and the precinct uniquely Tasmanian. It has to be complementary and sympathetic to the site in which it's going to be set. You know, it's an iconic location. We speak to, again, a whole range of people, whether they want to have some mixed retail opportunities or other types of things in the precinct. And they say, we couldn't get in there quick enough and develop something. And we say, great, you're going to have to do it on our terms though, in a way that complements the waterfront, in a way that is uniquely Tasmanian. You know, within the stadium itself, we will have local providers in there. We will have local producers. We will have bars and restaurants that showcase our local products. Not because we have to, but because we want to, and because it's going to be a selling point. It'll be something that people that are coming from interstate for events expect to see, and we want to have it. And we've already started speaking to local breweries and other partners about opportunities. Yes, we will have to do some deals with the big players in the market, but we're carving out opportunities for the local smaller players. And that just doesn't mean within the stadium itself, it means across the precinct. I mean, you know how many people are in the Salamanca area on a daily basis on the weekend? Why wouldn't we just extend that all the way across the waterfront? So all the hotels and all the businesses and everything else that currently exists on that side of Sullivan's Cove get to benefit from that. And that's what this will do.
Christine, I know you're itching to add something here, but I'll ask you a question first, then you can get to what you really want to talk about if you like. But one of the myths, it will be hard to get to and from the stadium. Hobart won't cope with the crowds. Your organisation uses a venue which doesn't cope with the crowds now. Lucinda Williams and Paul Kelly were there a week or two ago, and people were stuck there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, getting out of that 4,000 seat venue. How are we going to cope with what this goes at Macquarie Point?
Well, our expansion, obviously happened very quickly, and it happened in COVID. So I don't think there was a transport plan around our arena, which is one of the problems that we're suffering for now. But one of the great things about this planning is that transport is a big part of it. So I don't see that being an issue. I don't also see this the time to talk about the expansion of MyState Bank Arena, but we are actually.
But you've put it out there.
I just did. No, but everything that's been spoken about today is correct. And I was at Melbourne Storm when we were trying to get a rectangular stadium into Melbourne, and that received not quite the opposition that this stadium's got, but a lot in Victoria, because there's only one code and there's only one stadium that you need, and it's round. And so trying to get a rectangle stadium in the heart of AFL was really, really, really hard. But that was built, it was built for about 25,500 people. The Melbourne Storm now play there to sold out crowds. I've watched Bruce Springsteen there. I've watched Katy Perry there. I've seen the Matildas go there. Like, I've seen so much content out of that. And it is actually such an integral part of Melbourne's sporting precinct now and Melbourne's hub of entertainment. And so I just feel like, having been part of that and seeing what that's done for that state, it's a bit sad not to see this kick along at a little bit more pace. The other thing I want to say is I was in Brisbane on the weekend to watch the team play, and there were so many JackJumpers fans there. We are the most travelled team in the NBL right now, and there is a reason for that. They can't get a ticket here, so they go and watch us elsewhere. And in Brisbane on the weekend, we had almost a bay of JackJumpers supporters. It was so fantastic. We were loud, and I'm sure they brought the team home in the end. But when I spoke to so many of them, a lot of them have never been to a game at MyState Bank Arena. Yeah. So they spend their money and what they would have otherwise spent on a 14-game membership or a 12-game membership, and they're putting it into the Queensland economy. And we all know Queenslanders don't need another thing at the moment. So, they're going there for a few days, they're staying there, they're eating there, they're entertaining there, because they can't do it here. And we don't want that to happen again for AFL.
Kath, it's built. Collingwood are coming down for their first game in Tasmania. Are you prepared for the complaints that are going to go for weeks and weeks that the whole city was in gridlock and that Tasmanians couldn't get a seat at the game because all the black and white army had taken over?
Yeah, look, I think one of the biggest decisions, and Finny knows actually, she's been helping us, as has James, we're facing into our membership model. And how we can actually make sure as many Tasmanians can access as many games as possible at the right price. But we also know bringing visitors in is really important to the economic return from a tourism and hospitality perspective. So we've got a really big task on our hands, actually, to get that modelling right. And it's going to be really important that we do.
Do you think we'll ever sort out our traffic problems in Hobart if we don't build this? Is this going to be the catalyst for us to finally do something about that?
Well, I who's been to watch the the burning of the Uga? Yeah? Dark Mofo? Yeah? Many people?
Well, the Ogga, isn't it?
Is that Uga?
Oh, I'm not... We're both making a rough approximation of it. Yeah.
Who's been to the burning? Uga? Yeah. How many people were there?
About 25, 30.
Yeah. And so obviously the city, copes with it in so much that there's people walking and moving. And but I think what we should recognise is this has happened before. We're not staring into something that we've never done, and that's happening in spite of having, the planning and the infrastructure and the Northern Access Road and all the things that Anne and the team are working on. So I think we're really good at finding reasons why not. But as a community, here's an opportunity to think, well, how can we use this to catalyse other things and systematic changes and mindset changes for us? So I guess that's the challenge of this project more broadly. Yeah, it's really easy to think of all the reasons why we shouldn't do this. All of us could, yeah? But what about we just open our mind and think about what might be possible and how do we maximise the benefit? And I think that's actually the point I would leave us with. Right now, if the stadium opened tomorrow, we are not ready. We are absolutely not ready as a place, and we need to start getting ready. And there are so many things to think about. So young people and the subjects and the training that they're having in school, the workforce development in terms of making sure we've got, the people to fill the jobs. It's the hotels that are going to need to pop up. It's all the other things that are going to need to support and maximise this. So I'm not scared of transport. I think if we're scared of transport, together we've got really clever people in this community. I think we can work that out. And I think Anne's probably better placed to what those solutions might look like.
Yeah, go Anne.
Can I just comment on transport? Because I know this is a serious and a really key concern for a number of people. And similar to we need to talk about cost, we need to talk about transport, because it's almost assumption and emotional response. There's a couple of things that are important to think about. We often hear it's the wrong site and it should be somewhere where people aren't. This is a place for people to gather. It is exactly the right place because a lot of the people are already there. If we build a stadium in the middle of nowhere, it's in the middle of nowhere and everyone has to drive there. It becomes a traffic issue. We're looking to build this in the middle of the city where we have a large site that is perfect for large social and economic infrastructure. It is next to our existing 3 main highways that bring people in and out of the city. We're literally the T-junction of where they meet. There's existing transport infrastructure already there. We already have ferries coming in. We already have buses coming in. And we already have people there. People live and work in our city. We already have hotels there. So a big part of the people that will be coming to our facility for major events and for day-to-day things that James has mentioned are already in the city. So we were taking that load off our transport network by building it literally where people are. So it's just about maximising the systems that we already have, and it reduces the amount of additional infrastructure we actually have to build if we were to do it in the middle of nowhere in an isolated location. But also, I just wanted to flag, we have done a huge amount of work in this space. We have all sorts of modelling where we've looked at we have these little models where you see different coloured people because it depends on what location they're going to. We map them from their seat to their car or to a bus or to where they're staying and how they move across the city. We've identified where those areas are where we might have a large number of people and how to manage that. We've looked at our gates. We have 4 main gates for the stadium where people will come in. We have multiple egress gates of how people leave, and that gives us flexibility so people can move the shortest distance to where they need to be, and it avoids any risk with any interaction with emergency service vehicles that might need to come on in the event of emergency, and allows James's team and users of the stadium to flex depending on how they want to move people. If one gate shut and there was an emergency at a gate, we could still safely evacuate everyone through the facilities that we have. We've done an enormous amount of work about where people are coming from and how they're going to get there and the uplift we'll need to do in having those bus services ready. We've seen places like Optus do that really well. So I just wanted to flag this is an area of real concern for people, and it's important that we talk about it, but I just wanted to also flag we've done a huge amount of work around how this will work so we can be confident that everyone's experience is a good one and it's not just being stuck in traffic because they've had to drive to the venue.
Thank you, Anne. I think it'd be remiss of us if we didn't talk about the cost of the thing. We cannot afford the stadium now and we should build it later.
As Kath said, we cannot afford not to. And as the Minister has said a number of times, the longer we wait, the more expensive this gets because of escalation. That is pure fact. Our infrastructure pipeline over the next 10 years in this state is $30 billion. This is 1.13 over 5 years. It's not a one-off spend, it's spread over 5 years, and that's including the work that we've already done. This is a 50-year asset. It's the equivalent of a few months of spending in health that will happen anyway. We need to make infrastructure decisions. The government has to invest in infrastructure as well as services. They're 2 completely different things. And if it's not invested in the stadium, it'll be invested in other infrastructure. We cannot afford not to do this, and it is a critical opportunity to have this infrastructure in place after a relatively small investment when you look at the long term.
James, would you comment on that?
I just probably reference what's going on up in Brisbane as well. So if we
For
sit
the
on
Olympics?
Yeah, well, if we sit on our hands, then the ability to get enough people, to get the right people, to get the investment into the state in a timely fashion is going to become more problematic. So they're moving in Brisbane, and their infrastructure outlay is massive in relation to the Olympics, as you'd expect it to be. But we don't want to get behind the game as far as that's concerned either. So if you're talking about why don't we wait, well, there's other reasons other than just cost escalation.
Alison's had a really good idea, I think, perhaps to put a full stop on things, and Kath's talked about the young sporting men and women that are in the room here today with us. Would either of you two, in the colours, the black, the primrose, the rose, and and the green anyway, like to say what the stadium would mean to you when it's up and built?
Anyone want to be a spokesperson? No?
Yeah.
Could you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Lucy.
Yeah, is that it?
Stoneman.
Like Pink, just one name. Lucy.
Stoneman.
Right, Lucy, yeah.
I think the stadium would be a really cool thing for us as players, something to look up to play for when we're older. Like, it would be a really cool feeling being able to put on the jersey and not have to leave home to play the sport we love. And I just think it would be a really cool experience for all of us to have a stadium.
Kath has come up with some amazing numbers today about the participation rates in football, and it's the same with cricket as well. Have you noticed that? Come on. Are your friends now thinking about sport and getting involved that perhaps they didn't before the advent of the Devils?
Yeah, I guess it's definitely making. There's a lot more talk about it, and we're getting a lot more people to come and join because it's such a more heard about thing now.
Excellent.
Peter, I'm just going to ad lib here. We do actually have a father of somebody who's playing football on the mainland at the moment who would dearly love to play in Tasmania but can't at the moment. And I'm just going to flick to Ben. Do you want to have something to say, Ben?
Thanks, Alison. Just firstly to some key people who have spent a lot of time today to take the time to clarify some key points that a lot of people don't really understand, probably in the general sphere. I think it's an absolute credit to you to take the time to come and do that. So thank you. And the fact that it's communicated broadly is a real asset to what's in front of people over the course of the next 6 weeks. As a parent, it's an interesting thing it's a thing to celebrate when your son or daughter actually gets the opportunity to go and play the game that they love and at the highest possible level that they can. And it's wonderful when any AFL affiliated club gives them that opportunity. Unfortunately, for us, our daughter is the games record holder for the Coates League for the Tasmania Devils, and is a best and fairest winner, best and fairest runner-up, and played 3 marvellous seasons under Jeremy Webley, who was a magnificent mentor. She moved to Melbourne last year, now plays for Essendon in the VFLW, and I'm pleased to say has been recontracted, which is a wonderful thing for her to play for Essendon once again. But unfortunately, despite some initial approaches from the Tasmanian Football Club, which she was humbled by, because one day she wants to pull the number 10 map back on. It's not feasible, and it's not a strong enough sample size to go to Melbourne for a year, to move your life, to change your career, and then to just pack up and come home again. The surety of whether this will actually move forward, I believe and feel is probably very strong in this room. However, to an 18-year-old who is casting their career, it's not felt that strong. Because the simple thing, and I understand, having spent a lot of time involved in sport and in business in Tasmania, that when people say to me, Bolts, what do you reckon? I say, well, if not now, when? People will say, well, there is no when. Because the one thing, if you listen to the great man Brendan Gale, and I've had the fortune to be able to talk to him in front of many people, Brendan continues to say it is a conditional licence for the Tasmania Football Club. And one of those conditions is to have this magnificent piece of infrastructure.
Better late than never, I guess. But I'd just like to leave you with one thought. Imagine if it doesn't get built and we don't get our team into the AFL. How would you feel in 20 years' time when you're watching the Northern Territory representative team playing in the AFL and the ACT team playing in the AFL, and we are still not at the table? I don't want to leave you with that crushing thought, but look, it's been good you know, I guess you can tell that most of us are on the yes side of the argument here. It's been the most divisive argument in Tasmania, I think you'll agree, since 1983 and the dams debate. It's polarised a lot of us, but even those that are not on board yet, I'd hope that you might watch at least part of this and got something out of it today. I've learnt things that I had no idea about, and I hope, and you know, I've been intimately involved with it all, as I guess most of us in this room have, Alison. So today to have Anne Beach, Kath McCann, Christine Finnegan and James Avery here to give us an up-close and personal view on just where we are and where we hope to be has been a privilege. So thank you very much to our panellists today. Alison.
I might just throw out before we finish up, is there anyone out there that has some really burning questions? Like Mark, I know that you're keen, so...
My question is for James. A lot of comments that are out there from the anti-side in relation to concerts and that, that we won't attract big acts. Obviously, you spoke about you know, Pink and all that, and we won't get the big super acts, but we also won't attract any acts because it's too expensive to come across that water. What would you say to that? Because that, I think, is really important, because it shows that you know, that people will want to come here, but yeah, they're saying no because of the cost.
Good question, and it is something that people are asking, and there does seem to be a little bit of a narrative of it's not going to happen. So the issue you talked about in terms of cost to get across Bass Strait is a real issue. So that is a challenge. There's no point pretending it's not, and Christine knows that, and the team at My State Bank Arena know that, yet they still get events there. So that is a problem. For the big artists, it is a bit of an issue that they would have to take enough time out of their tour schedule to come down here and come out. So if you're playing in Melbourne on one night, then you go to Adelaide and play the next night. So it's night after night after night. If you come down here, you don't get to do that. You've got to add in more days. They are issues, but they're not insurmountable. So if the investment is right, and every state has to pay to attract these concerts, and we would be no different. If the investment is right, then what we are hearing loud and clear from concert promoters, whether it be Live Nation, whether it be Ticketmaster, TEG, Frontier Touring, all of them, we will bring content of that scale down. And to the point where, you know, Live Nation have put their name to it. In the government response that was made public this week, there is a quote from Live Nation that says exactly that. So I get that there are some people here who have maybe previously bought events down to Tasmania quite some time ago. I don't know. I don't know who they're talking to at the moment, but I can just tell you, as the organisation that is dealing direct with these concert promoters, they are definitive. They will bring the content down here. They will bring the concerts down here. And if I look at the example of over in New Zealand, the stadium in Dunedin, so it's about the same size as ours. Ours will be bigger because it's an oval, so our capacity for stadiums will be larger. You know, you've got to fly. You've got to get
What's
on.
the population of Dunedin?
Population of Dunedin is less than here. So they've had one major concert almost every year since they've opened, and they've had Pink, and they've had Katy Perry, and they've had the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and they've had those artists that we are absolutely looking at. It's just as hard to get an artist to that venue as it will be to get an artist to our venue. So there are examples where, you know, up in Queensland, there's a venue, a relatively new venue in Townsville that gets concerts as well. Now, what we also know is, speaking to these concert promoters, is the artists are getting a little bit sick of just the well-trodden path of the capital cities. When you've got people like Ed Sheeran who like to go to remote places, unique places to open a venue, you know, there's more.
There's a hint to who's opening the stadium.
There's
the act on the first night.
There's more and more of these artists that are thinking a little bit differently about where they play and the audiences they play to. I can tell you the appeal of opening a new stadium in a place like Tasmania is massive, and they're the conversations we're having with the people that control the artists. And we'll enter into a ticketing deal with one of the big players, and as part of that, they will be on the hook to deliver content. So it's not hit and miss. There will be a carefully constructed commercial plan and contract in place to secure that content. So it's, as far as we're concerned, and as the ones, again, who are having those conversations, we will be able to bring artists down here.
Just touching on that, because the other thing is, like, I think the Andes are saying it because of, you know, like staging equipment, it's too expensive to bring here. Our stadium, or Hobart, will be able to provide our own staging for those type of concerts.
So I think what they're saying is it's expensive. If you can strike the right commercial terms, it's not too expensive. We're also, you know, Anne and the team have designed the stadium in a way that is incredibly user-friendly for concert events, which we need to be. So as part of overcoming the challenges that we face, the tyranny of distance and other things, we have to make sure we're a really accessible venue, a really user-friendly venue, which will make, you know, because a lot of, again, artists are on the road for months and months at a time. They remember those venues where it was easy to play at and it was welcoming and it was a unique environment, a unique place. We've got all of that. So yes, it will be expensive to bring artists down here, but not insurmountably.
I promise this is the last thing I'll say, but have you thought about when an artist comes to Australia, people, if they're one of your favourite artists, you'll look about where they're playing in Tassie. The attraction of people from interstate coming here, because we are the flavour of the month. Yeah. You know, even today, I'd come to Tasmania from anywhere in Australia.
Well, I think we all do it now. So when we want to go and see a concert, we look around and we go, do I feel like going to Sydney at the moment, or do I feel like going to Melbourne, right? So, and you base it, maybe it's because of cost, but ultimately a lot of the time people are like, I feel like going to Sydney, haven't been there for a while, there's all these other things I want to do there. Or maybe I'll go to Melbourne to see that same band because I want to do whatever in Melbourne. People look at Tasmania and go, gee, I haven't been to Tasmania for a long time, or at all. Wouldn't mind going to Barnbougle, wouldn't mind doing all these things. Yes, I could go and see Pink play at Marvel Stadium, which I've been to 1,000 times, or I can go down to Tasmania and check out this incredible new stadium and do all those things I've wanted to do. That is a real thing. That does happen. Consumer behaviour, research and data shows us that that is real.
Well, I think we have gone over time, and
as we knew we would.
Yeah, we can obviously talk about this for hours, really, and we invite you to stay behind and have a cuppa, and we've got some fruit and cheese and things at the back there to nibble on. But thank you very much for coming along. And if you do want to ask any further questions, you can actually go to our website and send us an email, and we can certainly find those answers for you. We will get this recording edited. Content Visuals will provide that for us, and we can pop that up on our website. And we'll also be taking some highlights of this to create some social media over the weeks to come before that final decision in December. So thank you very much for coming along to our panel. Thank you very much for participating and donating your time to this today. We thank you. And Peter, thank you very much for being our MC today. And feel free to stay and continue the conversation, but we'll wind it up for the sake of getting that video sorted and for those that need to move on. Have a good weekend, and please be careful out in the wind.
Well done. Thanks, that was great.